Move your car. It is blocking my driveway, but Stephanie Mitchell did not move. She just stood there in her silk robe, one perfectly manicured hand on her hip, and laughed. It is just a driveway, Marcus. Stop being so dramatic. My daughter will move it when she needs to. It is my driveway, I said. And she has been parking here every morning for 5 days. Then what are you going to do about it? She asked, her eyes challenging. Call the police over a parking spot. My son knows the police chief. I did not answer. I just turned and walked back inside my house, jaw clenched, hands shaking. My name is Marcus Reynolds, and for 18 years, I investigated insurance fraud, corporate embezzlement, tax evasion, the kind of cases where one misplaced decimal point could send someone to federal prison. I built paper trails so airtight the defense attorneys would take one look and advise their clients to plead guilty. Numbers do not lie, and neither did I. That was the job. Find the truth, document it, let the consequences follow naturally. I had retired 5 years ago after my ex-wife Rachel and I went through a difficult divorce, thinking I was done building cases. I was wrong. And Stephanie Mitchell was about to learn exactly what that meant. I retired 5 years ago after my ex-wife Rachel and I went through a difficult divorce. She moved to California. I kept the house, kept the memories, kept the need for peace. So I sold my practice, paid off the mortgage, and moved to this quiet neighborhood in Austin, Texas, where I thought I could finally have some space to rebuild. The house is modest. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a fenced yard. But the driveway mattered. Rachel and I laid those limestone tiles ourselves 14 years ago, back when we still believed in building things together. She planted jasmine vines along the fence line, white flowers that bloomed every spring and filled the air with sweetness. I still tend them not as decoration but as proof that something beautiful once grew here. After she left, I kept the vines alive, kept the driveway clean, kept the space orderly. The driveway became sacred ground, quiet, maintained, enduring. That is why when Victoria Chen's white Range Rover first appeared there on a Tuesday morning in early September, blocking my entire exit, I felt something crack inside my chest. It was 5:30 when I woke up, same as always. I made coffee, stood by the kitchen window, and watched the sunrise paint the driveway in soft orange light. The limestone looked clean. The jasmine was just starting to bloom again after a dry summer. Everything was still quiet, orderly. Then, at exactly 6:02, I heard it. The aggressive rumble of a sports engine. I looked up and saw the Range Rover rolling down the street, slowing, then turning sharply into my driveway. Not halfway to one side, not politely positioned. Dead center, blocking the entire width, its rear bumper hanging over the sidewalk, its front tires crushing a section of jasmine on the left side. The driver's door opened. Out stepped Cassandra Mitchell, 19 years old, wearing yoga pants and a designer hoodie, wireless earbuds in both ears. She did not look at the house, did not glance around to see if anyone was watching. Just grabbed her backpack from the passenger seat, locked the car with a chirp, and walked straight into her mother's house 2 doors down. I stood there, coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips, staring at the tire marks on my driveway, at the broken jasmine stem hanging limp against the limestone, at the oil stain already forming under the Range Rover's engine. This was not an accident. This was contempt. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera app, and took 4 photos. Front angle, side angle, close-up of the tire on the jasmine, close-up of the license plate. Then I noted the time in my phone's notes. 6:04 on Tuesday, September 3rd. White Range Rover Texas plate parked entirely on private property without permission. When you spend 2 decades building cases, evidence collection becomes reflex. At 6:15, I walked outside. The morning air was warm, carrying the faint scent of cut grass from a neighbor's yard. I approached the Range Rover, slowly taking in the details. Custom wheels, tinted windows, a small dent on the rear bumper barely visible. The car was worth at least $60,000, maybe more, and it was sitting on my driveway like I did not exist. I knocked on Stephanie Mitchell's door, waited, knocked again. Finally, after a full 2 minutes, the door cracked open. Stephanie stood there in a silk robe, her hair perfectly styled. Even at this hour, her expression hovered somewhere between annoyed and confused. Marcus, she said, not quite a greeting. It is 6 in the morning. I kept my voice calm, professional, the same tone I used to use when interviewing suspects who thought they were smarter than me. Good morning, Stephanie. I apologize for the early visit, but your daughter's car is blocking my driveway. I need to leave for an appointment at 7, and I cannot get out. She glanced past me toward the Range Rover, then back at my face. Oh, she will move it when she needs to. She has a 10:30 a.m. class. I said I need to leave now. Could you ask her to move it? Stephanie sighed, the kind of exaggerated exhale that said she found this entire conversation beneath her. That street parking is completely full because of the construction 2 blocks over. Where else is she supposed to park? I replied, not on my property. It is just a driveway, she said. You are divorced. Right where do you need to be so urgently before I could answer? She smiled, thin and dismissive. Look, I will let her know you are concerned. But honestly, you should try being a little more flexible. That is what community means. The door closed, not slammed, but firm enough to make the message clear. Conversation over. I walked back to my house, got in my car, and spent 10 minutes angling it carefully around the Range Rover's front bumper, scraping my passenger mirror against my fence post in the process. My hand shook the whole time. Not from the scratch. From the disrespect. From her tone saying, you are divorced, right, like my time did not matter. Like losing Rachel meant I lost the right to have boundaries. I sat in the driveway for 5 minutes, just breathing, jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. For the next 5 days, the pattern did not change. 6 and 2A. The Range Rover arrived. 6:45. Cassandra left for class. Every morning, the same tire marks on the Jasmine. Every morning, the same contempt. I photographed each violation, logged each timestamp, left a note on day 2 that was crumpled and discarded. By Friday, I had 12 documented incidents and 1 conclusion. She was testing me. Testing whether I would actually do anything. Testing whether the rules applied to her. That afternoon, my son Jacob came home from his first semester at college. He is 20, studying criminal justice sharp as a blade. He found me sitting in my home office staring at a spreadsheet I had started. Date, time, duration, location, vehicle, description, violation type. 12 rows so far. Dad, what is that? He asked from the doorway. I said nothing. Just keeping track of something. He walked closer, reading over my shoulder. Is someone parking on our driveway? I nodded. The Mitchell girl. Stephanie's daughter. Jacob was quiet for a moment. Then he sat down in the chair across from me. Mom planted those flowers, he said softly. I know, I said. He asked, are you going to do something about it? I looked at my son, at the way he was watching me, with his mother's same steady gaze, and I realized I had been asking myself the wrong question. It was not whether I should do something. It was whether I was capable of doing nothing. Yes, I said. I am going to do something. Jacob said, good, because I did not raise you to be a pushover. I almost smiled at that. Almost. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar Texas property rights and towing regulations. The research began. Friday morning, I woke up at 4:30 and spent 2 hours drafting a formal letter on crisp white paper. Single-spaced, proper margins, date stamp at the top. The letter was 3 paragraphs long. The first explained the situation in neutral language. Your daughter Cassandra has parked her vehicle on my private driveway on 6 separate occasions between September 3rd and September 11th, blocking my access and damaging landscaping. The second cited Texas Property Code Section 92.008, which addresses trespass and injury to property, and Texas Transportation Code Section 22,500, which prohibits unauthorized parking on private driveways. The third made a simple request. I asked that Cassandra cease parking on my property immediately. I am willing to meet with your family to resolve this matter amicably and avoid further escalation. I printed 2 copies, signed both, and walked them over to Stephanie's house at exactly 7 a.m. She answered the door in the same silk robe, but this time her expression was closer to irritation than confusion. I handed her the letter without a preamble. Stephanie, I have documented 6 violations of my property rights. This letter formally requests that Cassandra stop parking on my driveway. I have cited the relevant codes. I am happy to discuss this reasonably, but the behavior needs to stop. She took the letter, glanced at the first line, then looked back at me with something between amusement and disbelief. Marcus, did you seriously print out a legal letter over a parking spot? It is not a parking spot, I said. It is my driveway. Private property. She unfolded the letter, scanned it quickly, and I watched her eyes stop on the legal citations. For a second, maybe 2, I thought I saw doubt flicker across her face. Then she folded it back up, and her mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. You really need to get a life. It is just a driveway. Besides, where else is she supposed to park the street? I said. That is not my problem to solve. She laughed short and sharp. Maybe you should build a fence if you are so territorial. It is limestone, I said quietly. Rachel and I installed it. She planted the flowers your daughter keeps crushing. Stephanie's expression did not change. She waved the letter once, dismissive. I will mention it to Cassandra, but you are being ridiculous. This is a community. People help each other out. Before I could respond, she stepped back and closed the door. Not slam, just closed, firm, final. I stood there, letter rejected, and felt the cold clarity I used to feel during interrogations when a suspect thought they had outsmarted me. They always underestimated documentation. Always. I walked back home, opened my laptop, and added a new entry to my spreadsheet. September 12th, 7 and 5 a.m. Delivered formal written notice. Rejected. Witness none. Evidence copy of letter retained. That evening around 8 p.m. My phone buzzed. Notification from the neighborhood app. I opened it and saw a new post from Stephanie Mitchell. The text was short, concerned, and carefully worded. Concerned about aggressive neighbor behavior toward my daughter. Anyone else experiencing this, I just want to keep our community safe. Within an hour, there were 43 reactions, mostly thumbs up and heart emojis. A few comments. Sorry you are dealing with this. Some people have too much time on their hands. Have you tried talking to the HOA? I read through them all. Not one person asked for context. Not one person questioned her version of events. Stephanie had framed the narrative, first painted herself as the concerned mother, painted me as the aggressor. And the community had accepted it without hesitation. I closed the app. I opened my spreadsheet, added a new row. September 12th, 8 and 15 p.m. Public defamation via neighborhood social platforms. Screenshot saved. Witnesses the entire community. I wanted to punch something. Not her. The system. The fact that someone could treat you like this and smile doing it. I sat at my kitchen table for 20 minutes staring at the certified letter I had drafted, wondering if I was doing this because she deserved it, or because I needed to prove I was not powerless anymore. Probably both. And that bothered me in a way I did not want to admit. Jacob came into the kitchen, saw me staring at my laptop. Dad, he said. I looked up. She posted about you online. Called you aggressive. Made it sound like you are the problem. Jacob leaned over my shoulder, read the post, read the comments. Then he sat down across from me. What are you going to do? He asked. I do not know yet, I said. But I know what I am not going to do. I am not going to respond emotionally. I am not going to post a rebuttal. I am not going to give her ammunition. Jacob nodded slowly. You are going to build a case. I met his eyes. I am going to build a case. Sunday morning, 6 and 15. The Range Rover was back. Same spot, same angle, same tire marks cutting through the jasmine. I stood at my window with my phone already in hand and dialed the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher answered on the third ring, her voice professional but tired. Non-emergency services. What is the nature of your call? I kept my tone calm, factual. I have a vehicle blocking my driveway at 2417 Elm Street. It has been there since 6 a.m. and I cannot exit my property. The owner has been notified multiple times and refuses to move it. She asked for my name, my address, and the vehicle description. I provided everything. Then she said we will send an officer when one becomes available. It may be 30 to 45 minutes. An hour and 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. The officer who stepped out was young, maybe late 20s, with a nameplate that read Torres. He had a notebook in hand and the slightly weary expression of someone who had already handled 5 calls that morning. I met him at the end of my driveway. "Officer Torres, thank you for coming." He walked around the Range Rover, slowly examining its position. He crouched down, looked at the property line, and stood back up. "Sir, I can see the vehicle is partially on your property and partially on the street. Technically, this falls into a gray area." He handed me a card. "I will file a report, but there is not much more I can do from a law enforcement standpoint." "I am sorry." I watched him drive away and stood there in my driveway alone with a $60,000 obstruction and absolutely no recourse. But I had something better. A legal pathway. Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. The monthly HOA board meeting was held in the community center. About 30 residents showed up, most of them over 50, all of them looking vaguely bored. The board sat at a table up front, 5 people, including the president, a man in his late 60s, who introduced himself at the start of every meeting, even though everyone knew his name. And sitting to his right in the vice president's chair was Stephanie. When the floor opened for new business, I raised my hand. The president nodded at me. "Yes, Marcus." I stood holding a folder I had prepared. Inside were printed photos, my spreadsheet log copies, of my written notice to Stephanie and highlighted sections of the HOA bylaws. I kept my voice measured. I would like to address a recurring violation of HOA parking regulations. A resident's vehicle has been blocking my driveway repeatedly over the past 2 weeks. 12 separate incidents documented here. I held up the folder. According to Section 4.2 of our community bylaws, residents are prohibited from obstructing access to another resident's property. I am requesting an official warning be issued. Stephanie did not wait for the president to respond. She leaned forward, her expression perfectly calibrated between concerned and disappointed. "This is a personal vendetta, everyone. Marcus has been harassing my family for weeks over a minor parking inconvenience. I have witnesses who can confirm his aggressive behavior." She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward the board. "He has made threats. He has confronted my daughter multiple times. Multiple neighbors have expressed concern, as you can see from this community post that received over 40 responses. I said that post was made after I formally requested your daughter stop trespassing on my property. The timeline is documented." The president was already leaning back in his chair, hands folded. "Well, Marcus, this does seem like something you two should work out privately. The HOA cannot police every parking disagreement between neighbors." "This is not a disagreement," I said, keeping my voice level even as my pulse picked up. "This is a clear violation of our bylaws. I have photographic evidence, timestamps, and documentation of 12 separate incidents. I am not asking for anything unreasonable. I am asking for enforcement of rules we all agreed to follow." Another board member, a woman in her 50s, spoke up. "Has there been any property damage?" I said yes, landscaping damage, crushed plants, tire marks on the limestone, but no structural damage to your home or vehicle. She pressed no, I admitted. She nodded as if that settled it. "Then I think we should follow the president's suggestion. Try to work it out between yourselves first. If the situation escalates to property damage or continues for another month, come back and we will revisit." The president called for a vote on whether to take official action. 4 hands stayed down. Only one went up, belonging to a man I recognized as an attorney who lived 2 streets over. 4-1, no action. I walked out of that meeting at 8:30, folder still in hand, completely ignored. In the parking lot, the attorney caught up with me. "Marcus, wait." I turned. He extended his hand. "I am on your side there." You have a legitimate complaint, but civil court is slow and expensive. Even if you win an injunction, enforcement is another battle. Stephanie could countersue for harassment. Best case scenario, you are looking at 6 to 8 months and $5,000 to $8,000 in legal fees. So there is no justice, I said. He smiled, but it was not a happy expression. There is justice. It just requires precision. Look into Texas Property Code Section 21,000, Property Owner Remedies. If a vehicle is on your property without permission repeatedly and you have documented it properly and followed notice procedures, the law allows you to take action. He pulled a business card from his wallet, wrote something on the back. These are the statutes you want to research. And if you need advice, call me. Pro bono. I hate HOA corruption as much as you do. I drove home, parked in my garage, and sat in silence for a long time staring at the business card. Then I opened my laptop and began researching Texas property laws, statutes, codes, notice requirements, towing rights. By midnight, I had pages of notes and one conclusion. There was a legal path if I followed it exactly. At midnight, my son came downstairs, found me still at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed pages and highlighted text. "Dad, it is late," Jacob said. I looked up. "Did you know that if you post proper signage, send documented notice, and follow specific procedures, you can legally have an unauthorized vehicle towed from your property without police involvement?" He sat down across from me. "I am taking Criminal Justice 101 right now. We just covered this. Texas Property Code, Section 21,000. The owner of private property may remove unauthorized vehicles after proper notice." "What counts as proper notice?" I asked. He pulled my laptop toward him, scrolled through the statute I had opened. "You need clearly visible signs that meet size and placement requirements. You need photographic evidence with timestamps. You need to attempt contact with the owner. And if they do not respond within 48 hours, you can authorize a licensed towing company to remove it. The towed vehicle goes to impound. The owner pays all fees." I sat back, feeling something shift in my chest. Not anger anymore. Not frustration. Something colder, more focused. "They think the law protects them," I said quietly. "They think their connections and their HOA position put them above consequences." My son looked at me with an expression I recognized from his mother. Steady, certain. "So prove them wrong. Build a case they cannot escape." I nodded. "I need to do this right. No mistakes, no gaps they can exploit." "Then treat it like a forensic investigation," he said. "You are good at those." He was right. For 18 years, I had built cases that sent criminals to prison. I had tracked money through shell companies, reconstructed deleted emails, found evidence that defendants swore did not exist. This was simpler. This was just documentation, procedure, and patience. This was what I did. I opened a new document and typed at the top Operation Legal Remedy Documentation Protocol. Then I started writing. Step 1, Property Survey Verification. Step 2, Signage Acquisition and Installation. Step 3, Certified Notice Delivery. Step 4, Photographic Evidence Compilation. Step 5, Licensed Towing Company Contract. Step 6, Execution. My son watched me work for another 20 minutes, then stood up. "Good night, Dad." And for what it is worth, Mom would have done the same thing. I looked up at him. "Your mother would have told me I was over-documenting." He smiled. "Yeah, but she would have been proud anyway." After he went upstairs, I kept working. By 2 a.m., I had a complete legal roadmap. By 3 a.m., I had ordered the signs online with express shipping. By 4 a.m., I had drafted a formal certified notice on a law firm letterhead template, professional and unassailable. And by 5 a.m., when the first light appeared on the horizon, I finally closed my laptop and allowed myself one thought. They wanted to test whether I would do anything, whether I had any power, whether rules applied to them. They were about to find out. Thursday morning, I woke with the kind of clarity that comes after sleepless nights spent solving problems. No coffee, no hesitation, just immediate action. I opened the fireproof safe in my home office and pulled out the property survey documents from when I had purchased the house 10 years ago. The pages were crisp, professionally drawn, every boundary marked in precise measurements. I spread them across my desk and cross-referenced them with the county assessor's records I pulled online. The driveway was 100% within my property lines. No easement, no shared access, no gray area. Completely legal, documentably mine. I photographed the survey from 4 angles, making sure the county seal was visible, the measurements legible, the property lines unmistakable. Then I uploaded them to 3 separate cloud storage accounts and saved physical copies in 2 different locations. In forensic work, we had a saying, if you cannot prove it 3 ways, you cannot prove it at all. I was building proof that could withstand any challenge, any claim, any attempt to muddy the facts. Step 1, complete. The signs arrived Friday afternoon via express courier. I had ordered 2, both meeting Texas Transportation Code Section 22,658 specifications. 17 inches by 22 inches. Reflective lettering, weather-resistant aluminum. The text was simple and legally precise. Private property, no parking. Unauthorized vehicles will be towed at owner's expense. No threats, no emotion, just consequence stated clearly. I inspected both signs under my desk lamp, checking for manufacturing defects, measuring the dimensions with a ruler, confirming the reflective coating worked under different light angles. Perfect. Friday evening, I drafted the certified notice. I used a template I had found in the Vehicle Code Guidelines, modified it to fit my specific situation, and ran it through 3 separate legal reference checks to make sure every word was defensible. The notice was 1-page, single-spaced professional. To Stephanie Mitchell and Cassandra Mitchell, this letter constitutes formal notice that unauthorized parking on the private property located at 2417 Elm Street will no longer be tolerated. Effective 7 days from receipt of this notice, warning signs will be posted and Texas Property Code Section 21,000 will be enforced. Any vehicle parked on this property without explicit written permission will be towed at the owner's expense. This is your final warning. I printed 3 copies, signed all 3. Put one in an envelope addressed to Stephanie with certified mail return receipt requested written on the front. Put the second in my evidence folder. Put the third in my fireproof safe. Then I drove to the post office, paid for certified delivery, with signature confirmation, got a tracking number, and photographed the receipt. Step 3 complete. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Installation day. My son came downstairs in sweatpants and an old university hoodie, hair tied back, ready to help. We carried the signs outside along with a post hole digger, quickset concrete, a level, and my camera. The first sign went on the left side of the driveway entrance, positioned so anyone turning in would see it immediately. I dug the hole 18 inches deep set. The post checked it with the level 3 times and mixed the concrete according to package directions. While it was set, I took photos from 6 different angles. Street view, driver's perspective, close-up of the text-wide shot showing placement relative to property line. We were finishing the second sign positioned symmetrically on the right side when I heard a door open behind me. I did not need to turn around to know who it was. Stephanie's heels clicked across the pavement, sharp and deliberate. "What are you doing?" Her voice had an edge I had not heard before. Not dismissive, not amused. Actually, concern. I straightened up, set the level down, turned to face her. "Exercising my property rights. These signs are legally compliant with Texas Transportation Code, Section 22,658. She stared at the signs, reading the text twice. "This is ridiculous. You cannot just put up signs and threaten to tow people." I said I can. Texas Property Code Section 21,000 grants property owners the right to remove unauthorized vehicles after proper notice. You will receive that notice via certified mail today. I suggest you read it carefully. Stephanie's expression shifted, cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally, something close to calculation. The HOA president will hear about this. I pulled a folded document from my pocket, handed it to her. I have already checked HOA bylaws sections 4.2, 4.7, and 8.1. None prohibit property owners from posting signage on their own property. This does not violate any community regulations. She unfolded the paper, scanned it, and I watched her realize I had done my homework, thoroughly done it in a way that left no room for argument. Her daughter appeared from inside the house, still in pajama pants, squinting against the morning sun. She looked at the signs, looked at me, and laughed. Wow, dude went and made signs. That is so extra. I kept my eyes on her, my voice completely level. The notice period begins when your mother signs for the certified letter. That will happen this afternoon. I suggest you read it. I have included legal citations and a clear timeline. After 7 days, these signs take effect. She shook her head, grinning like this was all some elaborate joke. Whatever, man. You do you. They both went back inside. I turned back to my son, who had been watching silently. How did that feel? He asked. I picked up the level again, checked the second sign one more time. Setting up the first domino. Day 3, the certified letter arrived. I watched from my window as the mail carrier handed it to Stephanie, had her sign the electronic device, and handed her the envelope. Stephanie stood on her porch, reading the letter. I could not see her expression from this distance, but I saw her shoulders stiffen, saw her flip to the second page, saw her pull out her phone and make a call. 20 minutes later, she walked to my door and knocked. I opened it. She held up the letter. This is harassment. I said no, it is a notification of legal enforcement. Everything in that letter is supported by Texas state law. If you believe otherwise, feel free to consult an attorney. I have provided the relevant statutes for their reference. My daughter has every right to park on this street, she said. I nodded. On the street, yes. On my property, no. That is the distinction the law makes. That is the distinction I am enforcing. She stared at me for 5 long seconds, and I could see her trying to find an angle, a threat away to make me back down. Finally, she said, You are going to regret this. I said, We will see. She left. I closed the door and added a note to my timeline. September 19th, 9:45 a.m. Subject received and read certified notice, made verbal threats, witness none. Evidence delivery confirmation. For the next 4 days, Cassandra parked the Range Rover every morning at 6 and 2 a.m. The neighborhood social media platform erupted with posts from Stephanie. Crazy neighbor escalating over nothing threatening to tow my daughter's car. The comments were split now. Some people still supported her, but others were asking questions. Wait, did he actually send legal notice if the car is on his property? Does not he have rights? I did not respond to any of it. Did not engage. Just screenshot everything and filed it away. Day 6, I finalized the towing arrangement. I called 3 license companies, verified their credentials with the state licensing board, checked their Better Business Bureau ratings, and requested quotes. I chose the most professional operation, a company with 18 years of experience and 0 complaints. I spoke with the owner for 30 minutes explaining the situation in detail, providing copies of all my documentation, confirming they understood the legal framework. He said, Sir, in 18 years, I have never seen documentation this thorough. If you follow through with this, you will have 0 liability. Everything is in the book. We signed a contract. I paid the initial fee via business check, ensuring a paper trail. I received a written agreement outlining their procedures, their insurance coverage, their protocol for legal towing. I filed it with everything else. Then I scheduled them for on-call service beginning the morning of September 27th, 7 days after notice delivery. Step 5 complete. That night, I reviewed the weather forecast for tomorrow. Clear skies, good visibility, perfect conditions. I checked my camera batteries. I charged my phone, laid out my clothes for tomorrow, set my alarm for 5:30 a.m., 30 minutes earlier than usual. I wanted to be ready. I wanted to see it happen in real time. I wanted to watch the moment when consequences finally arrived. Before bed, I stood at my window and looked out at the driveway. Empty clean. The jasmine was starting to recover from weeks of abuse. Small white buds appearing on the stems. Tomorrow morning, the Range Rover will come back one last time, but this time would be different. This time, I would be ready. This time, the law would be ready. And this time, they would learn what happens when you ignore someone who knows how to build a case you cannot escape. Monday morning, 5:55 a.m. I was already awake, already dressed, already positioned at my office window with a clear view of the driveway. Coffee sat untouched on my desk. My phone was in my hand camera app open set to video mode. My evidence folder lay open on the desk beside me, ready for the final entries. The morning was absolutely silent. No wind, no traffic, just the pre-dawn stillness that feels like the world holding its breath. At exactly 6:02 I heard it. That distinctive low growl of the Range Rover's engine growing louder as it approached. I started recording. The white car turned into my driveway with the same casual arrogance it had shown for 3 weeks, rolling to a stop in the exact center, blocking the entire width. The driver's door opened and the girl stepped out, earbuds and backpack over one shoulder. She glanced directly at the camera I had mounted on the corner of my house, and for a moment I thought she might actually acknowledge it. Instead, she smiled. Then she raised her hand and extended her middle finger directly at the lens, holding the gesture for 3 full seconds before turning and walking toward her mother's house. I stopped the video, saved it, opened my voice recorder app, and began a new audio file. Monday, September 27th, 6:04 a. Vehicle Texas license plate 8 X-ray 123, positioned entirely within private property boundaries, blocking all access to public street. The driver made an obscene gesture toward the security camera, demonstrating willful and knowing violation. This is incident number 16. Following expiration of 7-day notice period, proceeding with authorized removal per Texas Property Code Section 21,000. I picked up my phone and dialed the number I had saved under towing service. It rang twice. "This is Precision Towing," the voice said. "You have reached our emergency dispatch." I said, "This is Marcus Reynolds, authorization code Tango Charlie 2478. The target vehicle is on site. All documentation has been forwarded to your secure email. Please proceed per our agreement." "Copy that, Mr. Reynolds." The truck is 10 minutes out. The driver's name is Vance. He is our senior operator. He will verify paperwork on arrival. 23 minutes later, a yellow flatbed tow truck turned onto our street. I watched it approach slowly, professionally, the driver clearly checking addresses. It stopped in front of my house, and a man in his 40s climbed out, clipboard in hand, wearing a company uniform with his name embroidered on the chest. I met him at the end of the driveway. "Mr. Reynolds." "Whoa." I nodded. He extended his hand. "I am with Precision Towing. I need to verify the documentation before we proceed." I handed him a folder I had prepared. Property deed with notarized seal. Photograph evidence log. 47 images printed and indexed chronologically. Certified mail receipts with tracking numbers and signature confirmation. Sign installation photos with date stamps. Video compilation burned to disk with timestamps visible. 2 witness statements from neighbors I had managed to collect quietly over the past week. He reviewed the folder carefully, page by page, and finally looked up. "Sir, this is the cleanest file I have seen in years." "I used to build evidence for a living," I said. "Figures," he replied. "Everything checks out. Let us proceed." He walked back to his truck and began extending the flatbed's hydraulic lift. The mechanical whine of the winch, starting up, cut through the morning silence like an alarm. At 6:31, the first strap went under the Range Rover's front wheels. At 6:33, lights came on in the house 2 doors down. At 6:34, the front door flew open and both mother and daughter ran out, still in pajamas, feet bare against the cold pavement. The girl reached the truck first, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. "What the hell, that is my car." The tow operator did not pause in his work. Did not even look up. "Sir, this vehicle is being removed from private property per owner authorization and Texas Property Code Section 21,000. The girl moved like she was going to physically block the truck. "You cannot do this. Stop right now." The operator straightened up, his expression professionally neutral, but his voice carrying absolute authority. Sir, step back from the vehicle, or I will call the police for interference with a legal towing operation. This is your only warning. Stephanie arrived, then silk robe flapping, face flushed, her usual composure completely shattered. Stop this immediately. Stop this now. I was standing on my porch, coffee finally in hand, watching everything unfold with the same calm I used to feel when a case closed exactly as I had predicted. You received notice 7 days ago, I said, my voice carrying clearly in the still morning air. The signs are posted per Vehicle Code Section 22,658. This is legal removal of an unauthorized vehicle from private property. I have complete documentation of 16 separate violations following proper notification. She turned to the tow operator and I could see her shifting tactics, trying to find leverage. How much to unhook it right now? I will pay you double your fee. Triple. He shook his head, already securing the second strap. Ma'am, once a vehicle is hooked under legal authorization, it goes to impound. Company policy. There is no negotiation. You can retrieve it from our facility. He handed her a business card. Address and hours are on there. You will need the registered owner's license and proof of insurance. The winch engaged again, louder now, and the Range Rover's front wheels lifted slowly off my limestone driveway. The girl's voice cracked. Dude, that is a $60,000 car. I took a sip of coffee, let the moment breathe, then said quietly, then you should have parked it legally. You had 23 opportunities to comply. Stephanie spun toward me, and I saw something I had never seen in her face before. Not anger, not manipulation. Actual fear. Fear that she had lost control of the narrative, lost control of the situation, lost the power she had wielded so casually for so long. I will sue you, she said, but her voice wavered. I will sue you for everything. I said, that is your right. My attorney's contact information is in the notice I sent. I have prepared a full discovery package. It includes documentation of all violations, your dismissal of my requests, your public defamation posts, and your daughter's recorded middle finger to my security camera this morning. I am happy to see you in court. At 6:38, the Range Rover was fully secured on the flatbed. The operator performed a final safety check, photographed the vehicle from 4 sides with a timestamp camera, and climbed back into his truck. As he pulled away, the girl actually ran after it for 10 feet, before stopping in the middle of the street, breathing hard, staring at the tow truck like it had personally betrayed her. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. Not guilt, exactly. Just the weight of watching someone finally understand that power was not infinite, that the world did not revolve around them. It was not satisfaction. It was just consequence. Stephanie just stood there on my driveway for once in her life, completely speechless. By 7 a.m., the street had come alive. Neighbors opening doors, checking driveways, heading to work. Every single one of them saw Stephanie standing there in her robe. Saw her daughter in pajama pants. Saw the empty space where the Range Rover had been. Saw me on my porch, completely calm, finishing my coffee. One neighbor, an older man I had spoken with, maybe twice, gave me a subtle thumbs up as he backed out of his garage. I went inside, sat down at my computer, and updated my case file. September 27th, 6:38 a.m. Vehicle successfully removed via authorized towing company. Legal procedure followed without deviation. Subject and subject's mother present during removal. Both verbally confirmed awareness of signage and prior notice. Threats of lawsuit made documented via audio recording. Evidence package complete. Case file closed. Then I walked to my front window and looked out at my driveway. Empty, clean. The morning sun was starting to hit the limestone, making it gleam. The jasmine on both sides swayed slightly in a breeze I could not feel from inside. For the first time in 3 weeks, there were no tire marks, no oil stains, no evidence that anyone had treated this space like it did not matter. I stood there for a long time, just looking, just breathing, feeling something I had not felt since before Rachel left. Not happiness exactly. Something quieter, something like order restored. By 10 a.m., Stephanie and her daughter were at the impound lot. I know this because I received a notification from the towing company as part of our service agreement. Vehicle owner arrived for retrieval. All fees collected, release processed. The fees, according to the itemized receipt they had emailed me, came to $697.15. $485 for the tow, $75 for 1 day of storage, $120 for release processing plus tax. That same afternoon, the neighborhood social media platform erupted. Stephanie posted within an hour of getting home. Update: retrieve my daughter's car from illegal tow filing police report and lawsuit against neighbor for theft and harassment. This has gone too far. But something had shifted in the community response. The first comment came from my next-door neighbor, the one who had been too afraid to provide a witness statement earlier. Stephanie, I have to say, he did post signs and send certified notice. I saw the mail carrier deliver it. You signed for it. Another neighbor added, yeah, and your daughter was blocking his driveway every day. We all saw it. I am not sure how that is illegal towing if he followed the law. Someone else wrote, I am confused. Did the police say it was illegal? A fourth person, someone with retired police officer in their profile, chimed in with a detailed explanation. Former law enforcement here. If a property owner posts compliant warning signs, sends proper legal notice with proof of delivery, and uses a licensed towing company, this is 100% legal under Texas Property Code Section 21,000. This is a textbook legal remedy. The property owner is within his rights. I read through the thread twice, watching the narrative shift in real time. For the first time, people were questioning Stephanie's version of events, asking for proof, demanding receipts. Then someone posted a screenshot from Cassandra's social media account from her post, the previous week, where she had photographed my signs with a mocking caption. The screenshot showed her standing in front of my clearly posted warning, smiling, giving a thumbs down. So he knew about the signs and parked there anyway. Someone commented. That is just asking for it. Another added, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The thread kept growing. Someone found older posts from Cassandra's account, screenshots of her bragging about parking tickets her mother had paid, about speeding fines that disappeared, about never facing consequences because her mom knew people. The community perception was collapsing in real time. By evening, Stephanie's original post had over 200 comments, and the vast majority were not sympathetic anymore. One comment in particular seemed to capture the shift. Look, I am all for community support, but property rights are property rights. The guy sent a legal notice, posted signs, did everything by the book. At some point, we have to ask why the daughter kept parking there after being warned. That is not a neighbor problem. That is an entitlement problem. It had 63 likes. Stephanie tried to respond, tried to reframe, but every comment she made was met with counterarguments and requests for documentation she could not provide. Finally, around 8 p.m., she deleted the post, but screenshots had already been taken. The thread had already been shared to other neighborhood groups. The damage was done. Wednesday evening, there was an emergency HOA board meeting. The agenda simply stated community dispute resolution and parking policy review. About 40 residents showed up, double the usual attendance. I arrived at 6:55, took a seat in the back, and waited. Stephanie was already at the board table, looking composed but tense. The president opened the meeting and moved directly to new business. We are here to discuss recent events regarding parking enforcement and neighbor relations, he began. Another board member, a woman I had seen at previous meetings but never spoken to, raised her hand immediately. I have received multiple complaints about parking violations over the past year, not just from one resident, multiple residents. And specifically, multiple complaints about the same vehicle. She pulled out a folder. I have 6 emails here from different households, all documenting incidents where this particular vehicle blocked access, took multiple spaces, or parked in violation of posted regulations. These emails date back 8 months. 2 reference the fire hydrant being blocked. 1 includes photos of a mailbox being obstructed. Another documents a 12-hour driveway blockage at a different address. This has been an ongoing pattern. Stephanie's face went pale. The attorney who had helped me earlier cut through the noise. The law is clear. Texas Property Code Section 21,000 grants property owners the right to remove unauthorized vehicles after proper notice. This was legal. Fully legal. The HOA cannot interfere with state property rights. The president nodded. In light of this information, I move that we update our parking policy to explicitly state that residents may post compliant, no parking signage on their private property and may enforce property rights within the bounds of Texas law. The HOA will not interfere with legal property owner remedies. The vote was 4-1. Only Stephanie voted against it. Then the president did something I had not expected. Stephanie, given the clear conflict of interest this situation has created, it would be best if you stepped down from your position as vice president. She stared at him. Excuse me, he did not flinch. Multiple residents have expressed concerns about impartiality. This situation has damaged community trust. I am asking you to resign from the board. The room was completely silent. After 10 seconds that felt like 10 minutes, Stephanie stood up, grabbed her papers, and walked out without another word. The meeting continued without her passing 2 more motions about parking enforcement and community conduct standards. I sat in the back through all of it saying nothing, just witnessing the consequences play out exactly as documented behavior always does. Thursday evening, I was in my garage sorting through old files when I heard footsteps on my driveway. I looked up and saw Cassandra standing there alone, hands in her pockets, looking uncomfortable in a way I had never seen before. I sat down the box I was holding and waited. She shifted her weight. "Hey, Mr. Reynolds." I did not respond. Just wait. Look, I wanted to say the car thing, the parking. I get it. I was being a jerk. I kept my voice neutral. Yes, Cess. She seemed thrown by the direct agreement. It is just my mom always says we are entitled to. She makes excuses for she trailed off, and I could see her realizing mid-sentence that blaming her mother was not going to work. That is not my problem, I said. I understand, she said quickly. I just wanted to tell you I will not park there again. I nodded. Good. She hesitated like she was waiting for something more. Absolution, maybe, or confirmation that everything was fine. Are you going to accept my apology? She asked. Are you apologizing because you understand what you did wrong? I asked. Or because there were consequences? She opened her mouth, closed it, and thought about it. I guess both, she said. I said, then, show me changed behavior for 6 months. Prove you have actually learned something. Then we will talk about whether your apology means anything. Her face flushed. That is harsh, man. I said that is accurate. There is a difference. She stood there for another moment, then turned and walked away. I watched her go, then went back to sorting files. My son appeared in the doorway. You heard that he nodded. That was harsh, Dad. I said that was accurate. There is a difference. He smiled slightly. Mom would have said the same thing. We stood there in the garage as the sun set, not talking, just existing in the quiet space where order had finally been restored, where boundaries were acknowledged, where consequences had arrived exactly on schedule, where evidence, as always, had told the truth better than any argument ever could. 6 weeks after the tow, I woke up to the same routine I had had for 5 years. 5:45 a.m. Coffee. Window. Sunrise. But when I looked out at the driveway that morning, something was different. Not physically. The limestone was still clean. The jasmine was growing back stronger. White blooms multiplying along both sides. What was different was the feeling. For 5 weeks, I had looked at that space with tension, with anticipation of violation, with the low-grade stress of knowing that any morning could bring another confrontation. Now I looked at it and felt nothing but quiet satisfaction. The space was mine again, not because I had fought for it with violence or intimidation, but because I had simply methodically, legally reclaimed what had always belonged to me. The neighborhood had changed in subtle ways. My neighbors no longer avoided eye contact when I checked the mail. A few had even started conversations brief and polite, but genuine. The couple next door invited me to a barbecue. I had become oddly a resource. Someone who understood how systems worked and was not afraid to use them correctly. The girl I saw occasionally. She parked on the street now in front of her own house, taking the time to parallel park properly, even when it was difficult. One morning, about 2 months after everything ended, we crossed paths while getting our mail at the same time. She nodded. "Morning, Mr. Reynolds." I nodded back. "Morning." That was it. No apology tour, no attempt to be friends, just basic acknowledgement of shared space, the minimum respect humans owe each other. 3 months in, I was replanting the jasmine section that had been damaged. My son came home for winter break and found me kneeling in the dirt, measuring spacing between new plants with a ruler. "Dad, you are using a ruler to plant flowers," he said. I looked up. "Your mother always said proper spacing was the difference between surviving and thriving." He sat down on the porch steps watching me work. "How does it feel now that it is over?" I thought about that while I tamped soil around a new root ball. "Quiet," I finally said. "It feels quiet." I planted the last jasmine, sat back on my heels, and looked at the full row of white blooms. "Your mother used to say these flowers survive because they have strong roots." She meant it as a metaphor for us, for our family. Strong foundations, clear boundaries, the ability to weather storms. And now my son asked. I said now. I think she was also talking about principles, about having a foundation that cannot be shaken by people who think rules do not apply to them, about putting down roots so deep that casual cruelty cannot destroy what matters. We sat there in comfortable silence for a while. Then he said, "You know, Stephanie moved right." I had not known. Where he shrugged. "Do not know. Just heard it from someone in the neighborhood group. Apparently she could not handle everyone knowing the truth about what happened. Easier to start over somewhere else." I felt something complicated about that. Not satisfaction exactly. Maybe something closer to sadness that it had to reach that point. That basic respect for boundaries had been so difficult to accept that relocation felt necessary. That afternoon, a package arrived at my door. Small, wrapped in brown paper, no return address. Inside was a handwritten note and a check. The note was brief, written in careful handwriting I did not recognize at first. "Mr. Reynolds, I have been thinking about what you said about showing changed behavior instead of just apologizing. I'm enrolled in a conflict resolution program at school now. Required by the dean after everything happened, but I am actually learning things. This check covers what my mom paid for the impound. The real cost of what I did was learning respect the hard way. I am still paying that debt. Thank you for the lesson I needed, even though I did not want it." The check was for $697.15. I stared at it for a long time, then folded it carefully and put it in an envelope. I would not cash it. It was not about money. It was about acknowledgement. About finally understanding that actions have consequences, that other people's boundaries matter, that the world does not revolve around your convenience. I emailed her back. Short and direct. Lesson acknowledged. Use it wisely. Her response came an hour later. Already, accepted to the conflict resolution program. Turns out, consequences teach better than excuses ever did. Spring arrived, and with it came full bloom for the jasmine. The driveway became exactly what it had been before, what it should have always remained. A quiet space where white flowers marked boundaries, where limestone stayed clean, where morning sun painted everything in soft gold light. I stood there, one April morning, coffee in hand, watching a butterfly land on one of the blooms, and thought about Rachel. She had been gone from this house for 5 years. The loneliness had not disappeared, but it had transformed into something I could carry. Something that made me protective of the spaces I had built, the memories I held, the lessons I had learned. When Cassandra's Range Rover first appeared on this driveway, it was not just about parking. It was about someone treating carelessly what I held carefully. About contempt for boundaries I had worked hard to maintain. About the casual cruelty of people who had never had to face consequences. What I had done was not revenge. Revenge is emotional, messy, disproportionate. What I had done was simply enforcement. Clinical, legal, proportionate enforcement of rules that already existed. I had not created new consequences. I had simply stopped preventing natural ones from occurring. That is what people did not understand about systems. They work, but only if you let them. Only if you are willing to document, to follow procedure, to build cases that cannot be argued away. The driveway became just a driveway again, but every time I looked at it, I saw what it represented. Boundary. Principle. The line where private space begins and entitlement ends. The limestone that holds those lines in place. The jasmine that softens them without erasing them. And the quiet satisfaction of knowing that when someone crossed that line, I did not shout, or threaten, or descend into pettiness. I simply calmly, legally made them face the consequences their own behavior had earned. Rachel used to say the strongest roots grow in resistance. She planted those jasmine vines because they survive being stepped on. They survive drought and careless feet and casual damage. They survive because, underground, invisible to people who do not bother looking, they have built a foundation that cannot be easily destroyed. They bloom again. They always bloom again. I think she knew she was teaching me something, not just about flowers, about resilience, about how to survive loss by holding tight to what matters, about how to face people who think their convenience matters more than your boundaries, about building foundations so strong that even when someone tries to erase evidence of what you value, you can prevent it. You can document it. You can enforce the boundary between respect and contempt. The sun hit the driveway perfectly that morning. Clean limestone. White blooms swaying. No tire marks. No oil stains. No evidence of anyone treating the space like it did not matter. I stood there with my coffee, breathing in the jasmine scent, feeling something close to peace. Not because I had won some petty fight over parking, but because I had proven something I needed to prove after Rachel left. After the law failed her. After believing that maybe the system only protected people with power. I had proven that sometimes, not always, but sometimes the system works if you know how to use it. If you are patient enough to document everything. If you are precise enough to follow every rule. If you are stubborn enough to refuse to accept that power and connections make someone immune to consequences. The evidence never lies. The procedure never fails if you follow it correctly. And justice, real justice, does not require anger or violence or revenge. It just requires being right. Documentably, legally, unquestionably right. And then having the patience to let the consequences play out exactly as the law designed them to. That is not revenge. That is just math. Beautiful, impartial, irrefutable math. The flowers bloomed. The driveway stayed empty. The boundaries held. And every morning when I stood at that window with my coffee watching sunrise paint the limestone gold, I knew exactly what Rachel would say if she were still here. See, strong roots. Just like I told you. She was right about everything that matters surviving if you just refuse to let go.